All right, gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get this party
Can you share
started.
your screen?
First thing, please shut off all your phones, ringers. Don't need those going off during the presentations. Unfortunately, we're missing our Vice President, Scott Mazeroff, has the flu, and our Sergeant at Arms, Chris Borman, is not going to be here. He has some business to take care of.
It was up there earlier.
So it's going to be the three of us for the board members tonight. Just reminders, the upcoming meetings, we have February 10th, February 24th, March 10th, Brad Tipperton will be here from Referee Magazine. That is the nominations will be closing on that day. And then March 24th is our final meeting. That is when we will do our voting for the members. The Vice President, the Secretary, and the Sergeant at Arms are up for election again this year. So if anybody's interested in any of those positions, please let a board member know. We can go ahead and get that taken care of for you. The dues for this year is raised up to $40 per member. Pay the man right here. If you have not paid your dues yet, please make sure you take care of that. Referee Magazine will be supplying us with a preseason guide that SEWSA will be paying for. So once your membership dues are paid, we'll have a record of that. Once we get the books, we'll make sure you guys get those.
Could you go back to
once again, SEWSA is celebrating 20 years. I know it's not very easy to see at the moment, but this is what the new logo will be for SEWSA.
Good chair.
So if you want to take a look at that afterwards, I've got it over here for you, but that's what we're going with for the 20-year celebration.
That's sending it.
We have some guests tonight, so during their presentations, please make sure you watch your side chat and keep everything to a minimum. Just a reminder about derogatory remarks towards other umpires. It is not tolerated, and if we hear that, we'll be talking to some of the board members, being on some thin ice. So please keep that in mind when you are working this year. And once again, if you have a subject that you want to learn more about or discuss for training, or if you want to take it up yourself and be a trainer for the night, please let one of our board members know.
Got it up there, but
I'm more than happy to put it on the calendar for you to make a presentation on something. Scott Mazeroff is not here tonight, so unfortunately we can't talk much about the Umps Care program, but if you are interested more in that, talk to me afterwards and we can discuss some of that. So now I got the business out of the way. Now we have special guests that I want to introduce to both of you. They are both conference commissioners. They happen to be father and son in tandem. Mr. Gregg Owens, Mr. Tim Owens are here tonight to present what the commissioners look for out of the independent contractors that we are. So, Greg and Tim, it is all yours.
Thank you. I'm Greg. I'm the commissioner of the Metro Plastic Conference, which is made up primarily of 8 private schools, Dominican, Martin Luther, Thomas More in the area here, and then we go down into Racine Lutheran, Racine Prairie. I'm going to forget somebody. St. Joe's, Shoreland. Who did I forget? I forgot someone, but don't tell them. Yeah, Racine Lutheran, Martin Luther. Oh, St. Catherine's. Forgot St. Catherine's. So those are my 8 schools. So I'll let Tim introduce himself.
I'm Tim Owens. I am the commissioner for the Southern Lakes Conference. I'm going to go in alphabetical order because that's how I remember all of my schools. I got Lake Geneva Badger, Beloit Memorial came in full-time last year. Burlington, Elkhorn, Union Grove, Waterford, Westosha, and Wilmot. So those are my 8 schools. And then the other commissioner that rounds out our little empire here that we have, my brother Dan, he runs the SEC. So he has the Kenosha schools, Kenosha, Bradford, Kenosha, Tremper, Indian Trail, Racine schools, Horlick Park, Case, and then Franklin and Oak Creek. I can never remember which one's the lead.
Right now.
So Franklin, Oak Creek are in right now. So SEC is going to have a little bit of a different landscape, I think, moving forward here. So that's where we're at. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to go?
No. So I'm trying to get this to go fuller screen up there, so I'm struggling. So while I'm doing that, Tim is going to talk about the talking points we have. And if you have questions, feel free to interrupt, but maybe just raise a hand and we'll, but when we call on you, if you could, for my benefit, Tim probably knows, he has a better memory than I do, but just tell us your name, if you don't mind. That would be very helpful. Just a little bit of background. I never did softball, baseball. I was a WIAA basketball official and NCAA basketball official for about 30 plus years. I've been in my commissioner job now since 2012 and haven't stepped on a court since then and have no plans to. So just hit the And this is Vero Beach, Florida, in case anyone wants to go.
Touch
So look
IDs.
out of my hotel room. Yeah, I look at it every day.
So as my dad said, if you guys have questions while we're going over some of these talking points, feel free to stop us. If you know our family at all, we're very, very long-winded, and we can talk for hours. So, Mr. Edick, you're going to have to cut us off if we go too long. So I don't know if you can make this bigger or not, but
I can't even find it on my screen. So
there's a few
no.
talking points. There's off-field, on-field, and just some side things. My background is I'm also a basketball official by trade. I worked for the NCAA for 15 years, and I worked with the state for 20. So that's my baby. Basketball is my baby. I had my experience with softball was when I would go watch my girlfriend play when we went to Tremper. So that was the extent of it. As is for all the other sports that that we're responsible for, which is fine. One of my newest favorite sports is wrestling. I absolutely love going to wrestling duels, sectionals, regionals. It's a blast. Everyone's cheering for everyone. It's fantastic. So that's a little bit of my background. So on the field, off the field, my biggest, everyone would think that what you do on the field is what is most important. To me, I know I think I can speak for my father and my brother, but it's the off the field stuff that we are most concerned about. And that we take into consideration when we're looking to hire, looking to maintain our staff at what we are, and what we're wanting to do in my end of the season evaluations. So a few of them take and submit renewal tests on time. We do see, and this is a good point because I'm seeing it more and more as I dive into my staff now, which I'm having to reevaluate. But if you're a 30-year official and you're a level 0, level 1, that shows to us that you're not doing the things off the court, or off the field, off the field that you're supposed to be doing to maintain, to get the level. So that is taking the tests, possibly going to camps, things like that. So if I get Mike Edick, who I don't know from anything, reaches out and says, hey, I want to do softball in your conference. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look him up on the WA website. And if I see that he's an L0 or an L1, but he's been doing this for 20, 25 years, there's a little bit of a problem there, right? That means you're not doing the stuff off the field that you should be to continuously educate yourself. I was a master basketball official with the state for 12 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. I always went to camp every single summer because I wanted to better my craft, because I wanted to continue to get the schedule that I was getting. I wanted to continue to get hired by other conference commissioners or other assigners. So it's all about holding yourself accountable, and I'm going to use that term a lot tonight. Accountability. No go?
No, I can see it. It's great. Yeah.
Okay. So, that's just, I think, holding yourself accountable these days is kind of a lost art. And really not just in this avocation, but even just in everyday life. That and common sense is apparently not that common anymore. You know what I mean? So hold yourself accountable. If you do something on the field that maybe you shouldn't have, if you talk to a coach maybe the way you shouldn't have, maybe kicked a play, I would have a lot more respect for an official if an official called me and said, hey, I kicked a play. Coaches would have a lot of respect for you guys if you say, hey, I kicked that play. I'm never going to do it again. Right? So I'm holding myself accountable. And that's what we want to see when we're looking at hiring our staff. We talk all the time. I mean, he lives right across the street from me. I should say I live right across the street from him.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to say it.
So, I mean, we talk, and, me, my dad, and my brother, we do have a little bit of a consortium, even though we're all three of us are responsible for our own conferences. We kind of have a little consortium going because I'm going to use Matt Repsa, for instance. Matt Repsa came to me 2 years ago. Came to me recommended by, I think, Joel Jereminski. Did you? John, okay. So thank you for that recommendation. So he came to me, and I didn't say anything to him yet or my brother because I didn't want to throw someone to them that I didn't know, because then that kind of makes me look bad. So I wanted to see Matt work. I saw Matt work. I recommended to him and to my brother. And I think, are you working for Dan as well or not yet? Okay. Dan does know about him. Okay, so we talk about officials all the time. I'll tell you a real quick story, a basketball story. I had a basketball official get off of a game for me because he said that said that he had a birthday party for his wife. It was a Friday night in January. This is my first year. Well, I bypassed going to one of my schools to watch that game, and I went to his. That official was working on his game. So that official blatantly lied to my face. And as soon as I saw him and I walked in the locker room, he turned as white as this table. I let him go, he let him go, and Dan let him go the next year. I may have let him go in the midseason. But commissioners talk, and not just us three, but we talk. Ken Schimpf we talk to quite often. We talk to Brian Henson often. And I am responsible, since I have a lot of schools out west, I talk to a lot of the guys out in the Rock Valley Conference. I work closely with them as well. So it gets back to the term accountability that I was using, right? We talked about the education. Renewing on time. I know that they have changed things with their renewal window. It may be a little bit different. I think is there still 3 windows that they have for renewals? One for the fall, winter, and spring. Okay. So renewing on time, which will also keep that availability up. Not availability, I'm sorry. Your level.
I got it.
There we go. Keeping availability up to date on all assigning tools. When I was working, I was on 5 different assigning platforms. We had Blue Zebra, RefQuest, Arbiter, RSchool, and there was another one we used in the Big East. I can't remember what it was. I know that it's a pain in the butt to keep up all of those different assigning platforms. I really do. It's a pain in the butt. It takes time. But if you get a little bit of a system going, your availability will be up to date. We heavily rely on calendars to make sure that if I have a game that got canceled, postponed, especially with the spring season is, I'm going to say this, it's the worst only because of the cancellations and postponements. When I wasn't a commissioner, and he would always complain to my mom when I went to go visit, and when he would always complain to my mom about spring season. I'm like, it's not that bad. No, it's shit. Sorry, it just is. With all the postponements, the reschedules, that's the biggest headache. Please don't add any more to our plate or any more headaches by not keeping your calendars up to date. We only use Arbiter for our assigning. It takes maybe 2 seconds just to update and block a date. Just take the time and just block it. You should know, like, if you have your anniversary, you better block that date. Children's birthdays, block it. You want to go to a party, wedding, whatever, block it. You know those dates pretty far ahead of time. Just block them. Because if I have Badger and Westosha that are postponing to a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I'm going straight to Arbor to see who's available. And if I reach out to Mike and say, Mike, I need you at Badger Wednesday, tomorrow, you're showing available, can you do it? Oh, I'm already booked. Then why is Arbiter not shut? That's going to be the first question. Now, mistakes happen. We're human. Happens in everyday life. If you say, and you're telling the truth, hey, I forgot to block it. Completely my mistake. I'm not going to be as mad. I'm still going to be mad, but I'm not going to be as mad. If you lie about it, that's where we have an issue. Right? Easiest thing, keep your dates up current. That's what we look at. Even for the next year. I like to send out emails to my staff saying that, hey, I'm going to be sending out assignments for next year. Actually, I don't assign mine. Mike Patino signs my softball. However, I told him when I want game start to be assigned, and he will do it. So I will send out an email to my staff saying, hey, we're going to be start assigning in the next 2 weeks. That's the sign saying, hey, I should probably go ahead and block my dates for next year.
one thing
Right.
I'll say about that is we all kind of do it the same way. We may not send out that same communication, but look at the date, because like when we're sending out, we already have our schedules for next year, right? I will not start assigning softball for next year until this year's begun, softball season's begun. However, you may start getting some games assigned in March as March is ending, and you're going to say, well, I already got a game that date. And well, that's next year. So just make sure you're looking at the year that that offering is being made for. That happens more in other sports than it does in softball, but it does happen where the games are getting assigned for the next year, and people are declining them. And so you go back and say, Mike, you realize this is a 2026 game, not 2025. Oh, I didn't look at that. I can work it. So now I got to go back and I got to reassign it back to Mike because he's already turned it back. And it just creates more work for, got to use my fingerprint.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good try. So just make sure that you're looking at the actual, don't just look and say March 31st. Okay, maybe 26, maybe 25. You'll never see one, well, I shouldn't say never. You'll never see one from myself, and I can probably speak for Tim and Dan. You won't see one for 2 years from now, but you could see one for next year, because those offerings need to get out there, because there's not a lot of officials anymore or umpires anymore in any sport. And, it becomes difficult. I went to a 4th grade basketball tournament and hired some officials from that, watching them and talking to them and knowing that they were doing the right things. Because you can tell, and I always told my boys when they were learning how to officiate, you never know who's watching the game that you are umpiring, right? It could be a conference commissioner or an assigner that you do not work for, but has some interest in what your skill set is. Doesn't matter if it's a grade school game, a junior high game, or a high school game, or a summer ball game. You should treat every game like the same. And I always told them that. And, Tim was fortunate enough, and Dan were fortunate enough where they took that advice, and they were awarded some pretty high-level games pretty early on and got hired in opportunities that other people weren't getting, because they would come and say, well, what about this kid? Well, and I would give them a little bit of information I would know about that individual because I've watched them. I will always go out and watch games before I typically will hire someone, unless it comes from a recommendation from someone I have a lot of trust in and respect for. And I get a lot of referrals that way. And then I also get a lot of emails is, hi, I'm wanting to do basketball in your conference because I hear the basketball is really good. Well, send me your schedule. They send me their schedule, and they're doing grade school and lower level games. So I said, I'll come and watch when I can, but I have other people that I can give your schedule to that may come and do some evaluations for you. So I have people out there in every sport watching for new umpires and new officials and referees and everything for me. And I know Tim has guys with eyes and ears on too. So
Yeah, I actually have observers. I don't know how many conferences actually have observers. I pay my observers a game fee for whatever sport they're going to. I try to keep them out of football because we're paying $100, and that's coming out of my pocket. So I think I'll just watch film on the football games, right? But there are people watching. I went to, just an example in a little story. I went to one of my dad's games at his school because there was a newer official working, and there was a veteran official working the lower level game, and this veteran official wanted to work on my staff in the Southern Lakes. And I said, well, I want to come see you work a little bit. I want to see you work a varsity game. Well, I went in the St. Cat's AD's office, he has a huge TV in his office that projects the game because he's got a camera in there. And this official, when I was watching him on film, was walking up and down the floor. I hate that. It's my pet peeve. One of my pet peeves, to see them walk up and down the floor. Well, I told the athletic director, I said, watch this. I said, tell me what you see differently when I walk into the gym. Walk into the gym, he starts running, busting his ass. I told him I had just gotten there, just walked in. Went back into the athletic director's office. and watched the film. He must have noticed I wasn't in there watching. Started walking again. I went up to him, told him at halftime. I said, hey, this is what I saw. You will not be working on my staff just because of this. It's my pet peeve. You never know who's going to be watching. Whether it's a grade school, like he said, grade school, junior high, high school, college, there's always somebody watching. There's cameras everywhere. Everywhere. And people will look at it. If there's someone that is working for Brian Henson, I haven't seen him, I'll call Brian and say, hey, do you know Mike Edick? Yeah, he works for me. Do you have a film on him? Do you have anything on him? Yeah, I could send you something. So we also look that way. But yeah, moral of the story, there's always somebody that's going to be watching you. Honor the contract that was offered, accepted first. Don't give a game back. I'm just going to use. I'm going to use this bad boy.
That's okay. I'll just stand here. I'll just move this now. I'll just go like this.
Honor the contract that was offered, accepted first. Don't give a game back for a better game. The signers, commissioners do talk to each other, which we've already covered. When you must get off a game, be honest, hold yourself accountable with reason why, and communicate as early as possible.
I think the next bullet point goes with that. We all understand and appreciate there's going to be needs when we need to get off a game, right? You're going to need to get off a game, a softball game that you're assigned to. Something may come up, a family emergency, someone gets the flu, right? These things are going to happen. Someone gets injured. So it's always good when you have to give a game back, especially when it's maybe 3 or less days before that game. Offer us a replacement. We may not be able to give that person the game for some reasons. I've got some officials and umpires and referees that can't work some of my schools because of restraining orders against them. Right? I don't have that. A restraining order where the court says you can't come anywhere near 150 feet of my school or 200 feet or whatever it is. It's a little bit bigger than that. But I do have one in particular that cannot ever work at one of my schools, home or on the road. So just because you find someone, let's say that restraining order is on Tim, right? And you found Tim to work your game, right? And it happens to be at that school. Now, we may still use Tim, and I may move some people around, right? So just make sure that we'll probably be okay with it, but we always appreciate your looking as much as we look. I got one request today for a game tomorrow, right? Talk about, I went to this 4th grade game, I hired the guy. He's doing it tomorrow. So anyway, we may need to manage it in a different manner than just replacing you. So we may have to put Tim over at St. Catherine's and move that person over to St. Joe's or wherever.
That's why it's nice living across the street from him. It's easy. And kind of piggybacking off of that, now we have a lot of officials and umpires that work collegiately on our staffs. I know I have a different mindset than my father when it comes to that because I lived it. If you're on my staff and you work collegiate, you take that college game if it's offered to you.
Even if they have a contract.
Even if they have a contract. I will get it figured out. I know he feels differently. I don't feel
differently. Only when it was you.
Yeah. I had a couple of basketball officials that work collegiatally, and it was a Saturday tournament, Christmas tournament at Waterford. And Carl Birch. Anybody know Carl Birch? Great dude. I love Carl. Well, Carl's a very good college official as well. It was a Saturday. Saturday, everyone knows, is a busy, busy college night. Carl walked into Waterford. I knew he was still working because he hadn't given it back. And I said, thanks for keeping this game, but tell me you didn't block this date. He said, I did, which I was very grateful for. However, I want Carl and my other collegiate officials to keep their Saturdays open unless I ask them to keep it closed because they're working a potential conference championship. And they're on that game for a reason. But I tell officials, you take the college assignment because when I was working high school and college ball, you wanted to get the bigger assignments. You just did. Whether it was JUCO, Division III, Division II, Division I, whatever it is, you want to move up. That's why a lot of us are doing this. So if you work for me, and what's a busy day in college softball?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay. Well, if you're working for me and you have a college and you get offered a college game, I want to know. Now, if it's an hour before the game, I'm going to ask you to not take it. But if you get a game a week prior, I don't want you to decline it because I want you to go work that game. That's just how I feel.
But if you call an hour before and you have someone to take your spot,
Acceptable.
Done deal. It happens. And I think he's confusing me with the previous Southern Lakes, two Southern Lake commissioners ago.
George,
yeah. God bless him.
Anybody work for George Becker when he was running Southern Lakes? Yeah? Pat Miles?
Oh, yeah.
George is a good dude. I talked to Pat yesterday. He did the play clock at the AFC Championship game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He called me after their meeting to talk to me about something.
I'm so tired of Kansas City winning just aside. I'm just tired of them.
So any questions on the off-field stuff before we move to the on-field? Stuff we all know. Probably you've heard it before. We're probably all doing most of that, but keep the focus on it. All right, this thing is driving me nuts.
On the off-field, do you reach out to the assigner or the coaches before the games and confirming?
Oh, yeah, that was up there. I thought Tim had covered that. So it says up there, communicate to host school 2 or 3, not 2/3 of a day, but 2 or 3 days prior. Athletic directors have a ton of you-know-what going on every single day. I always thought I wanted to be an athletic director until I got this job and saw what they did. But if they have one less thing to worry about because you communicated with them that, hey, Tim and I are scheduled to work your varsity softball game. We will plan on arriving at 4 o'clock or 3:50, whatever it is. Let us know if there's anything we need to know that's going on. Otherwise, we will be there, and so you don't have to worry about that. And so, yes, great question. I would always ask you to do that and make sure you include your partner. And if you don't have your partner's cell phone number, maybe in that email say, hey, Tim, can you provide me with your cell phone number in case day of game we need to communicate? So yes, great question. Thank you for asking that.
I'm asked a lot when I speak at other associations if my athletic directors are open or game management is open to their cell phone numbers being provided. That's a great question to ask in an email with them. Because I don't want to speak for Jim Kluge out at Badger and say, yeah, I'll give you a cell phone number when Jim doesn't want anybody to have a cell phone number. Where he may prefer you have his assistant Tammy's cell phone number and not his. So I think that that's a great question to ask in your confirmation email with the school. Hey, are you okay if I have your cell phone number just in case something pops up? Always have your partner's number in your phone too, so you guys can communicate as well.
Any other questions on the off-field? Let's talk about on-field. And I'm going to cover this very first bullet point, and if Tim wants to take the rest, he can. The game that we umpire is about the student athlete. It's not about the crazy fans sitting up there in the stands. It's not about the coaches. It's not about the athletic directors. It is about the student athlete. And I have always told my athletic directors, if I ever stop making recommendations, because I don't get a vote in anything that we talk about, if I stop making recommendations and ask you to consider something that doesn't impact the student athlete first and foremost, ask me to leave. When I officiated, it was about the kids that are working hard. And it doesn't matter if it's an 0-14 team against a 14-0 team. That 0-14 team worked just as hard to prepare for that game as the 14-0 team did. And remember, it's about them. It's not about us or anybody else. And so let's remember that's what we're there for. They're privileged to have you guys there to work their games, because without you, what's it become? A scrimmage, right? And then who knows how that's going to break out. But yeah, remember, it's about the student athlete. That's all I'm asking you, because that's who we need to worry about first. Lost it again. Why didn't you tell me?
You are on a roll.
You're doing really well.
Yeah,
Second one is arrive on time, park as close to field as possible and together. A lot of schools in the Southern Lakes, I know, they do have some reserved parking for umpires and officials. I didn't like taking that just because if I have a bad game, he knows where I'm parking. So you can park as close as you want. I would park obviously together. You guys are. Let me ask you a question. Are there any new officials that are in this room? Relatively?
how long have you been working? High school?
Well, with softball and baseball,
Sure.
3 or 4 years.
Okay. So when you say softball, baseball, do you work other sports
Yeah, volleyball.
longer than 2 or 3 years?
Just quit soccer because of the schedule.
It's an interesting dog anyway.
What about you? Oh, good for you. The first year ago. Yeah? Good. And then a lot of you guys are all veteran seasoned officials.
So we need to keep this young guy here for at least a couple more years because there's statistically, it'll tell you, if you can keep him past 3 years, you got him. But if the parents are crazy enough that make him walk away under 3 years or under, we're never going to get him back. And I'm going to guess he enjoys what he's doing. And so we want to make sure we take care of him. Oh, geez. Oh.
Welcome to the dark side, bud.
Yeah.
Well done. Good. Good. So arrive on time. Now, I at one point wanted to look into doing baseball when I was officiating, but the 4:30 starts I couldn't do because of work. We all have lives. We have jobs that pay more than what we're getting paid to do this. Unless you're doing big D1, then that's a different story. If arrive on time is going to be a struggle for a game, that's where the communication with your partner and or athletic director comes in handy. A couple times this year with basketball, there was a few officials that were going to get to one of my schools because they had to go to Beloit Memorial for a 5:30 game, and they were driving an hour, and they got out of work late. I'm not upset. That happens. I've had it happen to me before. It's a communication that needs to stay present with partners. They called me to tell me. If you want to call me, fine, because then I can call my athletic director and say, hey, Greg, Mike's not going to be there until about 1:45. He'll be there. He's on his way. Work out in the way. That's all it takes. Now, where it's a little bit of a problem is when you don't get a phone call and the athletic director calls me at 10 to 6 saying, hey, is it normal that they're not here yet? A is a rhetorical question. B, it's a big problem. Communication is not had. And then when I call the official, say, hey, where are you? Hey, I'm walking in. No, hey, I'm sorry. No apology. Just, it's almost like I had to accept it. Well, I don't accept it. Because we have a job to do. You have a job to do, and part of that is communication. We have a job to do to put umpires and officials on the floor and on the field that are going to not give our athletic directors a heart attack because they're not there yet. That's what our job is. And to put the best product on the floor. Anyways, so if you're going to be late, okay, we just have to communicate to one another.
If you're going to be late, communicate.
Look, he just came up with that.
He's so proud.
He's good for him. Be a good, polite, professional communicator with coaches, players, and fans. Be the calming influence. Remember, in today's world, everything is being videotaped by someone, so make sure your actions are defendable on tape. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Tape never lies. Just doesn't. We had an instance this past Friday at a basketball game where I touched on with the official in the locker room and said, hey, you missed a foul. And that girl got hurt. She was the best player on the floor. Didn't play the rest of the game. I saw light between them. No, it was a foul. Pulled up, everything is on. Pulled up huddle fan right away. Showed him, it was a foul. The tape will defend you. Right? We have to use it. It's what we use when we critique officials. It's what coaches are looking at. It's what the clips that the coaches are sending to us, saying, hey, Tim, I need you to look at this. I think the official kicked it. Sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes it's just a misapplication of the rule by the coach. But we use the tape.
Not you, sir. Just the other coaches now. You were good.
Yeah. All right.
So just something that kind of goes along with that, and I probably should have rearranged it, is this hustle word. I know, there's certain rotations and places you need to be depending on game situations in softball, right? But if I'm standing here by second base and there's a play over at third, you guys tell me if I'm way off, over at third that I'm responsible for and I'm trying to call it from here, hustle over there, get in position to make the call. Get the best angle you possibly can. The game's not going to go on without you until you got you got your timeout with your partner behind home plate and you're going back to get it. Just make sure you're hustling and get to the best position to see the play. Because then on tape, we're going to see, and they're going to see, you probably watched some tape during some games, right? And so looking for certain tendencies, they can see you looking right at the play, ready to make the call. Girls World Series, a Little League World Series. I love watching that and watching how those umpires, now I know there's four of them, but they're still moving. When a ball gets to the outfield, they're still moving and rotating. So just hustle and get to where you need to be. You know better than I do where you need to be, but I'm just asking you, just hustle. And if you end up having your base umpire has to go out to the field, if you got to get out from behind home plate, just watch the play come in, please do so. Do what you need to do to see the entire play.
Amen.
Oh, jeez.
There was one that we skipped over. Again, don't engage in conversation with fans. You guys have enough crap to worry about when you're on the field. You shouldn't have to worry about fans, and engaging in conversation with the fan is just adding to the turmoil, adding to headache. I know all of my, what?
Are you done with that one? Because I'm not.
Which one?
Engaging with fans.
No, I just started.
Okay.
Sorry, chopping it a bit.
Yeah, you want to take this one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. A lot of schools, if they don't, they need to have administration there that will take care of the riffraff. They will get rid of anyone you want to, and the good ones won't ask you why. If I say I need him gone, got it, sir, we have to go. It's time to leave. Afterward, you can talk about it. Because the administration trusts your judgment on who's a bad egg and who needs to leave. If we have to talk about it afterwards, we'll talk about it. But most of my athletic directors won't say anything. And then I want a phone call. If a coach, player, fan gets ejected or there's an issue, I tell all of my umpires, I want a phone call from you before I get a phone call from them, because I want to hear your side of the story first. There's two sides to every story, but I want yours first, because I'm responsible for you. You're my people. And we have your backs.
You're not blindsided.
Correct. I don't want to get a phone call, and it angers me when I get a phone call on a Saturday from a basketball official saying, hey, Gregg Owens kicked out Mike Edick tonight. And then I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but let's hear it. My first instinct is I'm almost not even listening to what they say, because I'm so upset and disappointed that official didn't call me to give me the heads up. I don't want to be blindsided by a coach because I can't defend it. We're here to defend you guys. Our assigners are here to defend you. So give us the heads up, and then we'll talk about it. Now, I'll listen to the coach, I'll listen to the athletic director. But some of my football coaches took advantage of my openness with coaches and called me at 6 o'clock on Saturday mornings and Sundays, and that just ruined everything. So now they got to go through the athletic directors. But we're here for you, so communicate with us, tell us what's going on. And you have to do a report, and that is required. A lot of officials, and I give them credit now because they're admitting to it, that they're not taking care of business on the floor because they don't want to do a report. Well, unfortunately, it's part of the job. And that is also why we're having issues with behavioral issues on the bench, up in the stands, and on the floor. Because nobody wants to do anything about it. I'm not saying go out there and kick everybody out, but if it calls for it, take care of business.
They eject themselves.
Yeah, it's their fault.
Yeah, I've never kicked anybody out. They've kicked themselves out.
All right, go ahead. You're
So the
pacing.
other thing I'm going to
Yep.
say about conversations with fans, it's if before the game, there's probably people that know you by name and want to have a conversation with you, or the coach may know you, right, and wants to have a conversation with you. Be very careful with those conversations, because for everyone that you're having on this side of the diamond, those people are all watching, and they are expecting you to go over there and have the same amount of time for them and have conversation, even if it's just small talk. So between innings, before games, try not to engage at that point in time with fans. You can talk to coaches, but limit that time. If I come over and, what's your first name? If I come over and talk with Michael about something that happened, I need to go over and talk to this Mike and explain to them, hey, we were just talking about the last ball and strike call. He didn't like it. And you did, and he didn't. So that's all we're talking about. So just make sure you're giving them equal time. And fans, leave them alone. And just tell, I used to work in Kenosha. I live in Kenosha. I grew up, I went to Kenosha-Tremper. I lived 6 blocks from Kenosha-Tremper, and I officiated Bradford-Tremper games. And all these people from both sides know who we are. So I always put myself in position on the court where they can't come near me. So as you do that on a baseball or softball diamond, just get somewhere where they can't engage you. Because they shouldn't be outside those white lines or anywhere inside the fence, right? They should be behind it. And I know a lot of us like to go back and we stand by the backstop and we're trying to drink our water and here they come. Take your water and walk away. Or say to them, I'm working right now. Because you're working. You're getting paid to umpire, you're working. So that's all I wanted to say about that. That's all like Forrest Gump. That's all I got to say about that.
I actually always liked when people would come up and talk to me because I tell them to get away from me because there are probably people that I can't stand. So it was always felt good to say, hey, get the hell out of here.
You don't
Leave me
do that.
alone.
Oops. Yeah. Sorry, that just kind of changed. So we're going to leave it like that.
There are a few umpires that want to work in the Southern Lakes Conference, but I tell them no because I've witnessed them standing and talking to fans for an extended period of time. It's awful. It looks awful. And I know that he touched on that.
I think we touched on most of it.
Yeah, we touched on the game management. If no one comes up to you and if nobody talks to you when you're at the field in my conference, I want to know about it. So if Matt's working at Burlington and someone has not identified himself or herself as administration and they don't know who it is, after the game I need to know that occurred because I have to have a conversation with the administration to see them because they're supposed to have your backs. If I can't be there, I'm out all the time, but if I can't be there to watch, to have your guys' back when I'm there, somebody needs to be there to have your back. Right? Contact the signer commissioner if any issues are not caught off. So they are not caught off guard. I think we touched on that as well.
Typically when we go to those, I mean, if we don't have someone, it's the coach that we do.
Yep. Yes, by rule. By rule, if there's no game manager, who's responsible for his fans and his players? The head coach. And if Michael's not willing to take care of it, and it's something that needs to be taken care of, then I guess we're just going to say, Michael, either take care of it or this game's over and you lose on forfeit. Whether he's winning, losing, or drawing, right? So I believe that's written into the WIA rules, but it is there. But yeah, the head coach is responsible for his players on the bench, on the field, and his fans behind the backstop and maybe along the baselines. I don't think a lot of people sit in the outfield anymore, but I do when I go watch my grandkids' Little League games. Those are the ones that don't want to be sitting and be known with the people sitting behind you. So they don't want to be associated with. Calm and enjoying the game. Yeah. Yes. Good question. Thank you.
Last part is after the game, leave together. Talk about anything you need to. I know you kind of, as softball umpires, you guys are kind of out in the elements and kind of open to, you don't have a locker room. So you guys are at your cars, which leaves it very open for people to come to your vehicles to talk to you about something.
And if
So-
you've had trouble with a fan during that game, I would ask the game management, can you come out to the car with me so we can get in our car and leave? Because that's when the stupid stuff is going to happen too, on your way to the car or at your car.
Yep. And if you don't feel safe, get out of there. If there's something that needs to be talked about with like a game report or something, call each other on the phone. If there's nobody there to be with you guys, you know, obviously you guys are taking off your equipment and stuff and providing the plate, but you know, if there's a report, you can talk about it and then just kind of exit the premises. So, do you guys have any questions?
So thank you for what you do. We couldn't do our jobs if we didn't have you guys. I don't have to say gals, there's no gals here, but if we didn't have the guys and gals that umpire games and work with us, we would not be able to do the job that we've been asked to do by our conference. So thank you for what you do and for being here tonight. I tell you, I don't care if you're a master level official or umpire, a level 5, a level 3, whatever you're at. It says a lot about your commitment to the game of high school softball that you're here tonight. So I always appreciated it when we would go to our association meetings and we'd have a good turnout. I asked Mike before we started, how many association members do you have? And he said somewhere between 30 and 35. And I didn't count, but I'll bet there's 22 to 25 here tonight. That's really cool. And 2 of them we know, one's at his boss's retirement party or planning his boss's retirement, meeting the new boss, and another one's got the flu. And I don't know, I'll have to see what Mr. Titrington said when he answered my text message. But so anyway, thank you for being here. The other thing we put on here is, just so you know, I can't get it loaded up to my arbiter for some reason going into next year, but I know this year we're paying 75 for varsity and 55 for JV. In 2026, there's an increase by $10 for varsity level and 5 for lower level. We don't have a lot of lower level games in my conference for softball because they're smaller schools and the numbers are terrible. Numbers are terrible because all those other club sports are requiring these young ladies, right, to play club sports because they're going to get that big contract, that big NIL deal, right? That's what they're going to get. But, and I know, so that's what we're doing. So it's 75 this year and 85. And if you do, we sometimes will add a 3-inning JV game to the backside to get those kids an opportunity to get on the field as well. We're paying, I think it's either $30 or $40 for that additional time. So, but we would mention that to you before the game that, hey, we're going to have this 3-inning game. Do you mind staying for? And it's usually the lower level kids that are getting an opportunity to play that don't play a lot of varsity time. But that's how they're going to keep developing their programs and make your varsity games better, hopefully.
Southern Lakes, this year we're at 80. Next year we're looking at going, I know this says for 25 and 26, but next year we're looking at jumping up to 85. When it comes to JV and the Southern Lakes Conference, it's all left up to the schools. I can encourage them to increase their JV pay, but it's in our bylaws that the JV level is all based upon what the schools want to do, which I'm not going to argue. I know Burlington was sitting at $50 for lower level for a long time, and they went up to 60 or 65, I think, for this coming season, which is awesome. But there are schools that are paying 55. But I think that they're putting on their agenda to talk with their school board now to increase that. But with the varsity, I set that and get it approved. So for 25, we're at 80. My pay structure will be approved my proposal will be approved in May at our principal and AD meeting. Hoping that we get up to either 85 or 90, even 90 for moving to 26. I'm always competing with this guy. It's actually kind of funny when he raised his football a little bit higher than me and my brothers, and we were out to dinner. My mother actually yelled at him to see why are you doing that to your kids, putting them in a tough spot. It's actually really funny. was great. So, yeah, so that's where we're at. And then the SEC, they don't have, we asked Dan if he wanted us to put it up there for their pay structure, but nothing is set with him in the SEC. So,
Yeah, that has not been voted on for the SEC. If you work any other sports for the Metro Classic, starting in 25, 26, so that's next year, right? Every varsity sport got a $10 bump, and every lower level sport got a $5 bump for 25, 26, and 26, 27, and then we'll look at it again.
does anybody work football in the Southern Lakes other than Mike?
I don't.
What's that?
Any questions that you have on what we spoke about?
Who does your assignment for softball? I know he said Mike Patino does his.
So, yes, Chris used to,
Okay.
and then with his new employment situation, he respectfully said he needed to step down. So Mike Patino does help me.
Okay.
I think I had 80% of it done when I thought I should ask Mike, and so, yeah, right now it's myself and or Mike. Other questions about things that are just on your mind?
Guys, thanks for letting us come talk. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You guys are, seem to be south of the Mason-Dixon line here.
So
Are there comparable commissioners?
Yes, you have Brian Henson, who's in the Greater Metro. You got Ken Schimpf, that's with the Woodland Conference. Jack Fleming is with the Midwest Classic Conference, and he's got them all the way from University School to Lake Country Lutheran, the Luther Prep. Yeah, there's commissioners for every conference in the area. City Conference, I know, was Bobby Kelsey. I don't know if she's still doing that. I think Dennis Mandel does some assigning for her.
He does the lower level?
Yeah, it's for Gustafson, for John. Yeah, so there's lots of conferences in the area. I mean, I have schools that go as far as Whitefish Bay,
Oh, really?
but that's as far as I go. I got Whitefish Bay, Dominican, and then Thomas More, that's in St. Francis, Milwaukee, and then Martin Luther, which is right up here. Yeah, and then otherwise I'm Racine, Kenosha. But you have opportunities on Arbiter to set travel limits. So, I have sometimes when I'm in need, I see someone is needing to exceed that travel limit. I will reach out to them and ask them if they can do me that one favor, and if able, we'll get you some additional money. But I just did that for a basketball or wrestling meet, and we gave it to all three guys. We can't give you $140 and give them $100, right? So, yeah, that'd be good for you. But yeah, so it does. There are times when assigners, commissioners will reach out and see if you are willing to stretch your travel.
I have to beg in my conference get someone to go off to Beloit. That's a pain in the butt.
For lots of reasons.
Yes.
So now, are you guys the conference commissioners for all sports?
Yes.
Yes. Typically, a conference commissioner will be responsible for all sports. So we're responsible for the finances of the conference. We're responsible for putting together agendas and holding athletic director / principal meetings. We're responsible for all the assigning, all the hiring, all conflict resolution between schools. It's always interesting. I had one in one sport where some coaches decided not to go against the guidelines for that particular sport because they didn't want an individual winning the conference player of the year because they didn't like her. No, it's not a good reason, but I understand your sarcasm. But yeah, it's not. So I spent 9 hours on a Sunday after hearing about this, talking to all 8 coaches, got their input, had them revote, talked to my conference president, said, here's what I did. And, oh, by the way, we gave players of the year as a result. because that's what the vote came out. Because the two coaches that planned this, he had his girl up for Conference Player of the Year when her votes took him away from your player because they didn't want his player to get it. She said, well, I'll just pull mine. And so now you got extra votes. And it was pretty ugly. And I had the parent of one of the girls call me. And I normally don't talk with parents, but I wanted her to understand we were trying to do what was right by the student athlete. Not what the coaches wanted, what the guidelines said, and what was best for the student athletes. And I said to the coaches, I talked to those two first. I said, so you two blatantly ignored what the conference guidelines say and just did whatever the heck you wanted to do. Yes. They admitted it to me. I said, well, I hope you can lay down your head on your pillow tonight and sleep well, because that was wrong. I said, so I'm not going to ask either one of you for a vote, but I'm going to get a hold of all 6 other coaches, and we're going to have a vote. And if there's a tie, there's a tie. And if I hear that one of you reached out to one of the other 6 coaches to tell them what to do, you are not going to like what the next step's going to be when you aren't coaching your team for about a month. Because now you broke a conference rule and I can get involved. And I did suspend a coach this coming year, for 2 games because of breaking conference rules.
What does that mean? They have to come to the game?
They can't go anywhere near that field when they're playing. And the umpires and the AD will be there. Or not the umpires will be there, obviously, but the AD knows, and the coach knows, because I've had sit-downs with him, right? And told him, you cannot go to these, this is a him in this situation.
I know that.
You cannot come to those 2 games. And if I hear you were there, now you're going to have another game. So, and he was very understanding, and he never apologized and never was truthful about what he did, but never denied it. Yet I've got documentation from that situation from the other side that, with Tim said, tape doesn't lie, with tape. So tough to beat.
Do you have a procedure either of you for, I want to bring, because I have really dramatic having someone shadow me. Like, for instance, I like to have newer umpires shadow me on a good basis. Like varsity. I don't do varsity. I do them at the lower level. So if I were to do lower level varsity, for lower level situations, are you cool with bringing shadow having?
Well, for lower level, yeah, it's probably better. For a varsity level, it's absolutely a liability. And it may be a liability on the lower level, because that individual doesn't have a contract that
Well, what do you mean by shadow?
be on the field with them.
Bases, they would be behind me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Kind of like
Yeah.
some of the basketball officials we've seen at these.
Yeah, I thought you meant they would be there, but they would just be, they'd be on the other side of the fence. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, it's a liability because of schools don't want it. You don't want it. If something happens to that individual, you're going to feel bad, number one, and we'll hope he or she is okay. But then you're opening yourself up for, everyone's, I don't care if it's your friend or your neighbor or your brother or your sister, everyone likes to sue everyone when they think it's their fault that they were in that situation. I have a $2 million blanket policy for me as a commissioner. Hopefully, I never need to use it. But if you don't, this is a plug for NASO.
Wait,
If you
what?
aren't a member of NASO,
$2 million.
become a member, because they have that insurance for you as a member. And I'm sure Brad has probably
They
said
came out and
that.
talked to us last.
Yeah. Good people.
So what is your opinion? We've had this conversation as an association. What is your opinion on conflict of interest? If you're good friends with a coach, or you're buddy with people that are playing whatever game you're officiating, what is your philosophy for that?
So I have some of those situations today, and I have 110% of the time will not assign you to your best friend's game. If you're best friends with Michael and I've asked you to do his game, shame on me. Shame on you if you don't tell me he's your best friend. That happened in a basketball game where I put a guy on a game. I didn't know these guys were friends since they were this tall,
Right.
right? And all of a sudden he said, and because the coach said, oh, awesome, I see you put Tim on my game. I did? What's wrong with that? Well, he and I have been buddies since we've been in the 3rd grade. Took him off. And I blocked the school. Because we can block you from partners. If you don't like working with me or someone you don't like working with, tell your assigner, tell your commissioner, whoever is doing it, because we can block them from being assigned with you. I just had somebody turn back 4 softball games because they didn't want to work with the person they were assigned with, but never told me.
I have a crew on football who is, other than Edic's crew, is one of my top crews.
Could you say
I
that
said
again?
other than Edic's. His daughter actually goes to one of my schools, and I didn't know that. And he was working at that school as a white hat on, thank God Badger kicked the crap out of him because it was 1 versus 2. And I put him on obviously because it's a great crew. But then I found out, hey, maybe we shouldn't use this person next time, or don't use him because his daughter goes to this school. I'm like, wait, what? I had no idea. So my philosophy is, if you're, like you said, best friends, won't put you on their games. I actually have in my conference the father of an assistant coach on a baseball team, which I didn't know either, because they have 2 different last names. And I had to remove him from the actual conference. If I get a lot of my schools in the Southern Lakes, they do a fantastic job of having officiating classes as a part of their curriculum. So a lot of these students are coming up and they're wanting to work in the conference when they graduate. And I got this philosophy from him that it's got to be 5 years removed from the school. Because everyone you know needs to filter out. Everyone you know needs to filter out. So there is no issues with coaches. I have a kid that I'm dying to put on a baseball field. Dying. But he just graduated from Badger 2 years ago. It's going to be 3. Metro Classic. Great baseball umpire, but I can't use him yet.
I can't.
It's got to be 5 years. And when my AD is asked, and they say, hey, we really want Mike Edick. Well, he just graduated from Westosha. I can't use him for another couple of years. Well, it'll be okay. No, it won't.
And that's probably not a problem for the school he graduated from, but I guarantee you it's a problem for the other coaches in that conference. It happens. So we do have conflicts of interest that we hopefully are made aware of, and so we can address it and assign accordingly.
Good question.
Other questions?
Anybody have anything else?
Kind of a weird off-the-wall question, but do you or have you ever instructed your ADs to provide direction on where the ball diamond is especially off? So like if I go to a school that I don't know, then I'm just sitting there tooling around going, all right, I don't have any idea where this ball diamond is. And some is just real easy, but some are like behind and you gotta go over here, park in this area. And I'm just curious from your point of view, has that ever come up in conversation? That like maybe we should provide a little bit extra information?
I have all of my schools have rather bigger campuses. So they're all spread out. Football fields spread out. There was times where when I would go my first year, I had no idea where anything was. So I believe a lot of my athletic directors will include that in their email confirmation. And even if you ask, hey, where is it located? I have it set up in my arbiter. If you go to Westosha, it's weird. It's like
Down the road.
you have to go around the block. Westosha it's in the count. A lot of my schools are in the county, so it's like spread out. It's huge. It's all woods, and their JV baseball field is like a half mile behind the school where my son plays his travel games. So Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of my schools do. I like to think put in their email, hey, if it's spread out campus, they'll say, hey, our baseball diamond's 5 miles away north. We're almost in the border of Wisconsin, Illinois. So, and even if like you ask, like, hey, I've never been to your school before, where's your baseball diamond located? And they'll say, a lot of my EDs are great, so they'll say, hey, it's right behind it, or 10 miles up the road and by Delavan.
In that email that you're going to send 2 to 3 days beforehand now, ask that question. Sorry, I put it right back on you. Because those are the kind of things we need to do. We as umpires, officials, referees, whatever you want to call us, we need to do that. Like I said, a lot of schools will send out stuff to their opponent, and sometimes they'll include the umpires, but I don't think they all do. I've asked, but I can't go to their school and make them do it.
Yeah, Wilmot's the same way. Well,
Wilmot is
I love Wilmot.
like in Antioch.
It's
There's the softball
you have to
diamond in
go
Antioch,
like
I
with like
think.
curves all the way around. My first time going to their baseball diamond, I showed up at their school and I had to call Herm. So where's your baseball diamond? Where are you? I said, I'm at your front door. Oh, we're like 5 miles up the road. Like,
Yeah.
what the shit?
Just go to
Like,
Wilmot
all right.
Stage Stop. when
But it's
that
a
happens.
beautiful facility. Beautiful facility. It's very nice.
But yeah, I
No.
would ask that question.
Don't speed either, because it's like a snake.
We're taking up a lot of your time, so I don't want to.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Told you, long-winded. Yeah.
This is more, again, this is probably, again, more in relation with the WIAA, the way that, it goes more towards, the feedback after games and, I referee basketball, coach softball. I know the importance of rating the varsity officials after every game, but as a basketball official, as I got my postseason assignments, things like that, you go back and look at the feedback, and literally I'm under, somehow, again, after every game, they're supposed to rate you, right?
I'll take
And I
this one.
think I'm at 15%, maybe 10% of coaches, and
It might be high.
I can't view any
I
of
got
the feedback I do get. And so, like, I know I put a lot of effort in it as
Mhm.
a
Yep.
coach to making sure, because it had, 5 would work state games, or if they were gonna work, anything less than that.
Yep.
And then again, maybe that's more the WIA and things like that, but how can, I guess, that get back to the umpire, the referee?
So it's funny you ask. I actually just talked to Chad Schultz this afternoon, because I'm wanting to start in my conference kind of like a tier system with officials. But with that, I need to know what their ratings are. Because I can ask Mike, hey, Mike, what was your rating last year? He could tell me it's 19.5, when in reality it's like 3, and I would never know. So I'm wanting to know what my officials are getting rated by my coaches. Now, another caveat to that is I am constantly I have 8 meetings with my coaches before every season. Not the cross country, not tennis, not that, but the ones that are having officials and that I'm really responsible for. And I'm telling them to constantly rank the officials, because you guys do count on that for postseason eligibility. But when I talk to Chad, they're wanting to tweak their rating systems and the ranking system, how things are done. So they're actually going to be starting and forming a subcommittee with
Full
commissioners, coaches, officials. It's not all just representative, and then athletic directors, to put our heads together so we can come up with an easier rating system for every party that's included: coaches, ADs, commissioners, assigners, whatever it is. So I know that is coming down the pipeline. I just don't know when it's going to take effect. But I do know, as a basketball official, like, the rating system it's tough, if anything.
I think coaches have a 48-hour cool down before they can rate you. So is it 24? Yeah, I know it's 72 for some, so I went in the middle. So they do have that. And if they rank you, like, I think it's 4 or above, they don't have to put any comments. But you should be able.
But you can see the number of people.
Yeah, you should be able to see your average and who's.
You know the number of
Yeah.
people, per game, or 50 games, you should have 100.
There should be.
There should be 100,
Yeah.
and when you go in there and you see
15%. That might be good.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that might be a
Well,
good
it is,
number.
for sure. That's
But
why
it's not good. It's not good, but that you might be better than others. I have one football crew that got no rankings, and I called. We had a football conference meeting for the Midwest Classic and Metro Classic football conferences a few weeks ago. Jack and I lit into them because the coaches were all there. And we said, that is not acceptable. Don't ever complain. I said, don't ever complain to me about a crew if you can't go out there and put your ranking in. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want any tape from you. I don't want a word from you unless you're going to do your job. Because I'm just going to delete your email from going forward. I mean, they tried giving it to me one time on a sideline. They brought down their iPad like Tim's carrying around. They want to show me a play. They want me to go in at halftime and tell you what you did wrong. Like I'm going to change the call. And I said, you're right. They missed that. They missed the ineligible downfield. But go back to that whole series. I was watching and counting. You missed 25 tackles. So don't talk to me about that scoring play. Because you had them 3rd and 20 right here, and you couldn't stop them. So don't blame them.
You know, I kind of found a loophole with my, like I said before, like I told my football coach, like, hey, you, like call me, whatever. I said my guidelines are you can't call me until 24 hours after the event is done. I said, don't call me after 9 p.m. on Saturdays. And then Sundays, I don't do any conference work. So realistically, if you think about it, I shouldn't hear from them until Monday. And by then, they're over it and they're already on to the new opponent. So it's, but I tell them, you need to rate the officials because I'm getting, I mean, when I told you I got a phone call from a coach at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I said, did you rank them? When I saw him the next time, did you rank that crew? He's like, no. Well, I didn't get any clips. You're going to send me 4 or 5 clips. Did you send those to me? No. Well, then don't complain to me about a crew. If you're not going to put in some extra work and show me, because if he doesn't say, I don't want Mike Edick on my games anymore. Okay. I'm not just going to blackball someone because you don't want them. So send me clips, rank them, and then I will make the determination. But it's very, very difficult to blackball a crew, to me. But if they're not going to put in the work to show me why they don't like Gregg Owens on a basketball game, there's nothing I can do. I'm still going to send them games. I'm still going to send them games even if you do send me the clips. People have bad dates. It just happens. So,
Yes.
There are conferences now that want you to do both the varsity and JV.
For softball. So I have little or no feelings on it because my conference, I think we have 4 of our 8 schools that they play only these 3-inning games when they play each other because the other 4 don't have the numbers. But that happens in a lot of sports. And who's asking you to do it, the assigner or the commissioner? Or the assigner or the school?
The assigner.
The assigner, they're the same person for...
The assigner and the commission. It's the Woodland Conference. It's the one that.
So he is Who does it?
North Shore?
Okay, so that's John Gustafson and Ken Schimpf, is that right? But I think Dennis Mandel does North Shore. So I don't want to, I can tell you from my perspective, are they playing the JV game before the varsity game? After? I wouldn't have as much trouble with it then because I, as the varsity assigner, want you to be fresh for that game. So if you are comfortable doing that lower level game, then I'd say, yeah, I think there's such a shortage of officials. And you've got baseball and softball typically being played on the same night. And how many of you do baseball as well? So a good number of them. So there's probably not as much availability on either side of that. So they may be in a position to have you do that. Now you have to be willing and physically able to do that. I physically couldn't stand out there for that long because of bad knees and screws in my back. That's why I quit officiating. So, I mean, every conference is going to do it how their schools have asked them to do it. My schools have asked me, if we play a 3-inning game after the varsity game, do you think your umpires will do it? I says, tell me when you're going to do it and I'll ask.
Yeah, these are full games.
Yeah, I would.
And now they've come back and games because they don't want to do the JV.
And I'm not surprised. I mean,
And
that's
the Southern Lakes, we
the
do,
nature of the beast.
the JV plays the same time as varsity, so it doesn't even pop up.
Yeah, so that's just how they probably choose to do their scheduling and their assigning. And that may be something that, again, that's coming down from the schools. Because they probably, you can, if the school's going to do that, they may be paying less for that lower level game because you're already there, right? So it's a budget thing, it's a budget thing, air quotes. Yeah, and travel, yep. So it's a good question, but it's probably a better one to ask those commissioners is, if I don't do this, are you taking games away? And the answer probably will be yes.
Real quick, getting back to the rankings, when the coach ranks an official, do you physically see the individual rankings that coaches give?
We can't. I asked Chad that today if there was a way that we could see the rankings, and he said that there isn't. He thinks there is.
I believe there is that we
I
can
haven't
see them
seen
as a
it, though.
Yeah,
commissioner.
as a commissioner.
Yeah, and we can see comments. Yeah,
So I know as an official, it'd be nice to hear the feedback itself from the coach.
if I get,
reasons why they gave you a certain grade.
if I get specific feedback, good or not as good, I will share that with you. I won't share it with the whole crew. I'll just
Right.
reach out and say, hey, here's what the comments were tonight. You know, you may or may not agree. So don't shoot the messenger, but if you'd like to talk about it, don't call the coach. Call me. Right?
But it's nice to get that feedback.
Yeah, and I will give it to you if they put anything in there. But like I said, unless they ranked you, I think it's 3, 2, or 1 or
Right.
below, they don't have to put a comment. So usually if you've done a great job, they'll say, great crew, best I've had this year, would have them anytime. Okay. And I could ask the question, well, what made them a great crew? Did they hustle? Did they have a consistent strike zone? May not have been the one that you like, but was it consistent? You know, did they communicate well? Did they, get the game moving and kept it flowing? Didn't, worry about the fans and the other stuff going on outside?
So I know as an official, we see who graded us and what the total
Yeah.
average.
So you don't
the
see
average.
comments,
That's it.
yeah,
Right.
or scores.
Yeah.
So we don't get any feedback, don't get anything else.
No.
Just to follow up to Mike's question. So you have, let's just say I have a school on 12 games the last 3 or 4 years, but I got rated 4 times. Probably because she didn't like something. But the other 8 times, there's no rating. How do you take that as a commissioner?
How do I fix it? How do I
No,
try?
how do you take that as a commissioner that the coach is only rating you when they don't like something?
Well, I tell my coaches, because I will go to my all conference meetings, which is coaches that are holding those, right? With one AD, our lead AD, and then I'll go as the commissioner. And I'll ask them, did you do your rankings? And it's like dead silence, just like right now. Did you guys do your rankings? And I said, so I'm going to assume then that everything was fine and we don't need to address anything. However, coaches, you need to put those rankings in because of what this gentleman said is that's how they get their postseason assignments. And if you're not doing that simple part of your job and it literally probably takes 10 minutes to do. Without comments, it's probably 5 or less. Probably takes longer to log in than to hit that button, right? So I do my best, and then I go to my AD meeting a week later and say, we need to do a better job at making sure and keeping our coaches accountable for putting these rankings in. But there's not, other than doing it for them, I've asked before, because we have coaches, believe it or not, that don't put statistics in with sports or whatever they're supposed to be. They won't put them in because they don't want other teams to know them. We were able to put into our bylaws, if those are not in, or our guidelines, if those are not in within 72 hours of a completion of the game, you can no longer put your student athlete up for all conference considerations. And so, but then we say, but that's not helping the student athlete. we're punishing the student athlete for something we as adults cannot do. That's part of our responsibility. So we took that out, and now we're trying to find the right way to hold our coaches more accountable within our guidelines of each sport to rank and to put statistics in. Outside of that, unless the athletic director, I had one athletic director literally, when his or her own son was up for going to be potentially conference player of the year in a few different sports. I said, your coach hasn't put any stats in. So that means so-and-so can't be considered for all conference. She went in and put them all in herself. A whole entire year. And I said to her, I said, do you think that really was the right thing to do? I said, I get it. You want your son, and he'll probably still get votes even without the stats. But we don't have any consequence in our guidelines right now for that. But we need to put it in for the coach, not for the kid. It's not the kid that didn't do it, right? That he or she, the girl in that softball season, busted her hiney, right? She practiced hard, she played hard, she probably didn't play the best every game, but she busted her butt. And you as a coach, Michael, needed to do that. So shame on you. And I mean, in case you haven't figured it out, I'm not afraid to just go right into a guy's face and say, shame on you, Michael. Shame on you. And I'll do it in front of his peers.
I have a statistician in my conference, so I don't have to worry about that. He does all the work.
Yeah, that is different. Yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question or not, but our hands are somewhat tied as commissioners because we have no way to hold a coach accountable for doing their rankings or statistics. More importantly, for this group, their rankings. They need to do a better job of doing their rankings. I had one guy who didn't like his rankings, called me, and if any of you ever do this, it'll be the last game you ever work in a Metro Classic, all right? He called me and said, can you go in and give me a top tier rating so that I can get better postseason games? I said, so this is morally, ethically not going to happen. I said, and thank you for the work you've done in my conference in the past, but you will no longer be working for me. Well, that's not fair. I says, yeah, it is. My integrity would have been challenged had I done that. Because I said, I didn't see you work. Well, you know I'm a good umpire. I says, I'm not saying you're a good umpire or not a good umpire. You're asking me to rank you based upon something I didn't even observe. And you want me to give you all, is it 5 the best or 6? I don't even know anymore. 5?
6.
You want me, I said, not going to do it. Well, your schools are the ones that rated me badly. Well, there might be a reason then that we're parting ways. Because it would have come sooner or later anyway.
Any other questions?
Did that answer your question? I mean, as best I can.
A little bit, I just feel she uses, only rated when she didn't play some calls. Other 8 games, she had no rating.
Yeah, and who, is it my school?
I'm not gonna say.
Okay,
You know
well,
what conference it is?
but if you know what conference it is,
Was it one of these conferences?
Is it one of ours?
well, you should let us know who it is so we can address it. You don't have to do it in front of the group, but send us an email and say that Becky DeMuth didn't rank me.
You gotta imagine the 4 games she wasn't happy.
Well,
Something in those games, you know.
yeah, but that's not fair to you.
Okay, so we'll take that offline. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Greg and Tim. I certainly appreciate your time coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.